So, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So, we're going to start to talk today about the question of where did the universe come from? Where did the universe come from? A very important question. Before I answer that question, certain concepts need to be clear. Physics, or you can even say the laws of nature, are constant. They are fixed. For example, gravity. You pick something up, it's going to fall down. Time, we know time, how it works in a very calculated way. The laws of motion, energy, all these things are laws of nature, right? And so then what? The universe, or the world, is bound by laws of physics or by laws of nature. Nothingness, so before there was the universe, there was nothing. Absolutely nothing. And if there was absolutely nothing, then it can only produce nothing. Nothingness can only produce nothing, just as if I have dice and I throw dice, the result will always be 1 through 6 because that's the laws of nature. I can throw dice an infinite number of times, the result will always be from 1 through 6, and the dice will never become a flower. Okay? So, nothingness can only produce nothing, infinitely nothing. This is very interesting, because when we say, okay, we know the universe came into existence, we know there was a Big Bang. And if there was a Big Bang, and the universe came into existence at some point, it's very irrational to say the universe came out of nothing, because the laws of nature are such that nothingness will produce nothing, infinitely produce nothing. And I'll talk about this more in a second. Nothing, something, meaning the physical universe, can only have a metaphysical answer. Meaning, you have to give an answer outside what is in this universe, which are things like gravity, time, laws of motion, energy. If you pick something up and it falls down, you can explain why it happened, right? You can explain scientifically why something happened in this universe. You can never explain something out of the ordinary. Something that was nothing, and then it came into existence. To try to explain how nothing became something would only have what we call a metaphysical answer. An answer that cannot be answered by laws of nature or by the laws of physics. Okay? So, something can only have, if nothing goes to something, then, the physical universe as we know it, can only have a metaphysical answer. Which then means, as some scientists like to think, that some fluke event happened in nothingness. There was nothing, and nothing was going to happen in that nothing, but some fluke event happened, some accident happened in nothing, even though that's not a rational thought, because you can have no event in a nothing, and you can certainly not have a series of events in a nothing. And then that nothing, and by the way, in philosophy it's called neo ex nihilo, something coming out of nothing. Right? So something came out of nothing, but you want to say, in a place that was infinitely nothing, something just came out as a fluke, as an accident, in a place that could have no accidents because it is nothing. And so some fluke event happened in nothingness, and that is not a rational thing to say, because no event or series of events could happen in nothing. There's no reason for something to happen in a place of nothing. So if something happened, and we know something happened, then it couldn't be out of nothing. Or it could be out of nothing, but you would have to give an answer not based upon laws of nature, but something beyond laws of nature, something that is metaphysical. It's called metaphysics. And so science cannot answer the questions of metaphysics. How did this universe come into existence? Out of nothing. And, you know, the universe has a beginning. We know that. And it came. And before there was nothing. And if there was nothing, then nothing would only make nothing, because nothing means exactly that, infinitely. But here's the even more interesting part. You know, where did the universe come from? It came from something that could have not been nothing, because if it was nothing, it would produce nothing. And so, what's even more interesting is that the universe had a beginning, and in the beginning, I'll give you an example. Think about this for a second. What is more complex? A seed or the tree? The tree is more complex. It has more parts. It is more sophisticated. It has more different types of cells and so on and so forth and functions. The tree is much more complicated than a seed. But the seed, which is simple, gives birth to a tree which is more complex. This is exactly what's happened from this quote-unquote nothingness. So the whole universe was a series of events of simple to more complex events. So for example, there was the Big Bang, right? And then from that, one of the first things that came into existence amongst many other things was gravity. We're just looking at one of many of different factors here. From gravity, you got atoms. From atoms, first you got subatomic particles. Subatomic particles were simple. They gave birth to atoms. Atoms were simple. From atoms, you got molecules and compounds, and you got your periodical table all of a sudden. So from atoms, you got your periodical table. From your periodical table, you also have your water, right? And then from there, you have life. And then from life, you finally have life like a human being, all going from simple to more complicated, to more complicated, to more complicated, to more complicated. All beginning with what? Nothing. That would only do what? Produce nothing. That is an irrational statement, to say that we came out of nothing. But it is true that you can only answer the question of where we came from, or where the universe came from. It couldn't have been out of nothing, because the result of zero is always zero. This is a mathematical fact, right? You times any number, 500 times zero. If there was nothing, it would always, 0 times 500 is 0. 0 times infinite is 0. So, if there was nothing, then there would only be nothing. There's no idea. It's not possible to say, oh, there was a fluke. There could be no event. There is no event. It is nothing. Right? There could be no accidents. There's no like bumping of particles and then you get a Big Bang. It couldn't be, because it was nothing. And if it was nothing, then that means that we should still be nothing. Much less to speak that we went through a process of simple to more complicated, to more complicated, to more complicated, that from more simple, from subatomic particles to atoms, atoms to compounds, and compounds to water, and water to life, and so on and so forth. That is very, very improbable. So, the idea that we are an event, or we happen to be here because of some fluke event, doesn't make any sense. You have to give a metaphysical answer. Something happened, and that started this universe. So, think about it.